Okay. 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 If anyone spent any amount of time on the internet, I think they would have ran into the birthday boy picture. In that picture is actually a really young Rick Evans from Red Letter Media. Red Letter Media goes over this in detail in a video even. Yeah, that's some real. So, yeah, but besides the image being a cursed image and really popular meme thanks to the internet, it's not only a part of internet history, but it also goes much deeper than that. And that's what I'm wanting to explain in this little video here. As watered down as possible, because I've spent the past few years of my life watching hour-long videos discussing Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz history, and I want to narrow that down to a few minutes, 30 tops, but yeah, I'll be getting information from various sources that I have visible on my iPad that's right next to me at my desk, where I'm screen recording this from my phone for my VTube stuff, you know? And, yeah. Before I begin into that rat hole, I want to explain how I've got into the fandom in the first place, because, honestly, this is one of my, strangest fixations. It began with me, like for many others who are in the fandom that are around my age, that is, with FNAF. And I don't need to explain to anyone what the Five Nights at Freddy's is, as most people and their parents would know what the Five Nights at Freddy's is. If you don't, you're like 5. Anyway, I've been a fan of FNAF since it was first released and popularized in 2014. And to this day, all I have for merchandise is a torn apart copy of the Twisted Ones that I got from a book fair back when I was in like high school or something. My memories are kind of blurry sometimes, so I can't remember certain things, and this stupid Funtime Foxy plush that I have in my room that I usually keep at my bed. I love him so much. He's a silly guy. Though some people will argue with me that Funtime Foxy is female. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's a robotic fox, so who gives a about gender? When it comes to a robot, there's been statements of a canonical gender for said robot. Scott Cawthon left the genders for quite a few of the animatronics ambiguous, like Mangle, for example, so, you know, at the end of the day, it's up for interpretation, but, yeah, anyway, FNAF. It got me into animatronics, and I wanted to know more about animatronics that existed in real life. And that's when I was starting to see the Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz history videos on YouTube, because I figured that would have been a good place to start if I'm wanting to learn about animatronics, and I just went into a rabbit hole from there. And I want to discuss that rabbit hole, so well, rat hole in this case. So, let's begin. The 70s to early 80s were an interesting time, to say the least. Arcades were brand new, and a well-known company, Atari, was selling machines to set arcades. And co-founder Nolan Bushnell figured that these arcade cabinets could be used for a different kind of franchise, featuring a meal and some form of entertainment. He sat down with some of his executives to figure out an idea for a new business venture. He wanted there to be, obviously, a place for him and his company to have the arcade cabinets in, but he also wanted some kind of food to go with the games. He went with pizza because he stated that it was a food that was easy to, quote, not f*** up, and he wanted some form of entertainment to go along with the food, because that was around the time where entertainment with food was at all-time high. He went to Disney for inspiration, because right when he graduated college, he was wanting to become an Imagineer at Disney, but he was refused because at that time Disney didn't allow new graduates to be Imagineers. I don't know if it's still like that today, but that's how it was back then. So he figured the entertainment he could use was animatronics, because of his inspiration from Walt Disney and the Walt Disney Company. With all that figured out, the last thing he needed was his mascot. Initially, he wanted the mascot to be a coyote, and the original name for the chain would have been Coyote Pizza. He got a costume that he thought was a coyote costume at the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions, or often shortened to the IAAPA Expo, around 1973. He came to realize that, oh, this is a rat and not a coyote. But rather than trading out for an actual coyote costume, he went as what he had and decided that the rat costume was gonna work. And he was initially going to call his mascot Ricky Rat, or Rick Rat for short. And the name of the restaurant would have then been Rick Rat's Pizza Time Theater. But there were concerns with his executives with having a restaurant associated with a rat. That worked out for Remy and Ratatouille, but it won't be the case in real life, so, it had to be changed. Then it would have been changed a third time to the Big Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. But around that time, the Marriott Hotel had a freaking thing for the phrase "the Big Cheese," and the copyright was about to expire anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered, but Nolan still wanted a name that was fully original, so he scratched the Big Cheese name and went with Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater in the end. And that's kind of how everything started. And then the first Chuck E. Cheese's opened up in San Jose, California in 1977. I stammered a lot, and I have to apologize. I'll stammer a lot because, I'll think quicker than I can speak, and that will lead to me stammering off and on. So, yeah. At the time, Chuck and his group were called the Pizza Time Players. And the original Pizza Time Players included, obviously, Chuck himself, Jasper T. Jowls, Pasquale the Pizza Chef, and Krusty the Cat, who would have later on have replaced his Mr. Munch in 1977 when the second location opened. Around this point, they would have also had rotating guest stars, the very first one having been Helen Henny, who would have became a permanent member of the cast later down the road, but I'm getting ahead of myself, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Anyway, other guest stars would have included Madame Oink, or as she often corrected Chuck in her name pronunciation, Madame Oink, but I pronounced it the American way because frankly that's easier. She was a French pig. There was an Irish fox that was called Foxy Colleen, or Foxy Flanagan. Yes, there was a character the late 70s, early 80s that was called Foxy. FNAF fans, you can make your jokes now. That'll be annoying as hell to deal with. Just a little 8-year-olds making a bunch of FNAF jokes in the comments. Nothing against FNAF, though. I actually love FNAF. It's just that FNAF ruined the perspective of animatronics entirely. But anyway, what else? There's Sally Sachet, that was a disco skunk. And then there's the fan favorite, Hardy Howlett, who was a cowgirl, coyote. Yeah. And there was, in some locations around this time, a cabaret lounge that would have included some various side acts, like Dolly Dimples, who was a flirtatious hippo who'd play the piano. She would have had a couple of replacements. First, Artie Antlers, a piano-playing moose, who was a bit of a smooth talker, and later on down the road, BB Bubbles, a circus elephant, is a shrill cart who his high-pitched voice. Yeah. Then there would have been the Beagles, who were a parody of the Beatles. they would have had a couple retrofits too. The Beach Bowsers, an obvious parody of the Beach Boys, and the Furlow's Shavers. That would have been a barber shop quartet that would have been in experimental ice cream emporiums. Yeah, that would have been implemented in a handful of locations. One set of low shavers exist today. I forgot where. I think it was the Volo Auto Museum or something. Yeah. But, yeah. The fact is that there's only one left is kind of interesting. My throat's getting dry because of my rambling, but I'm still gonna continue. So, we're starting to enter the 80s. Nolan's right to expand his business venture. He goes off to Robert L. Brock, or Bob Brock for short, to negotiate franchise deals. At first, Bob Brock goes along with it, but he felt iffy about the quality of the animatronics. Because by this time, there would have been the shelf stage still. The balcony stage didn't come until later. Maybe I am still a little sick, but anyway. Right. Bushnell, Brock, Bushnell would have stated something about another guy that he's seen at one point at an IAAPA expo called Aaron Vector, who was a young inventor that he went to and seen animatronic shows from. And he wanted to get the animatronics, and Vector was afraid that Bushnell would have reverse engineered his creations. Oh, Vector politely declined. But Bushnell made it seem like Vector's animatronics were worse. And the animatronics at Pete's Time Theater, which made Bob Brock curious. He took a trip to Florida to go and get a tour of creative engineering. And then seeing Aaron Vector's creations, Bob Brock was like, whoa, holy, these robots are amazing. I'm pecking out of my was Mr. Bushnell and working with you instead, young Vector. And Aaron Vector's like, yeah, okay, cool. But we need to figure out how we're gonna go about this business venture. Because at this point, the opening of Brock's first Pizza Time Theater as a franchisee for Pizza Time Theater was months away. So they had to figure things out before then. They put their heads together and they've created Showbiz Pizza Place. in 1980. But they didn't have a show ready that was fully original, so they had to work with whatever was available in Fector's huge warehouse, which was the Wolfpack 5. The shows at Bushnell wanted to buy from Fector at the IAAPA Expo. Yeah, that show. It was a success, garnering in a lot of customers. And Fector and Brock realized that the most genius approach would have been heavily basing the new show off of their temporary show. And that's when they developed the Rockfire Explosion. Yeah. Anyway, the characters in the Rockfire Explosion all include Billy Pop Broccoli, Looney Bird, Duke LaRue, Fats Geronimo, Beach Bear, Mitzi Mozzarella, Rolf the Wolf, and Earl Schmurl. Oh boy. All this talking is gonna drive me insane eventually. But, you know what? That's fine. Anyway. This would have started up a rivalry between Showbiz and Pizza Time Theater in the early 80s, because Showbiz Pizza Place would have gone a lawsuit from not Mr. Bushnell, but Chuck E. Cheese, the company, for stealing copyright, because they were essentially copying what Pizza Time Theater did with the animatronic arcade pizza restaurant thing. But Pizza Time Theater would have gone a counter lawsuit, not from Brock or Fector, but from Showbiz Pizza, the company, stating that their shit was, well, garbage. And yeah, that was the start of the pizza war. And that was a fight for the ages at the time, because that was the Nintendo versus Sega of the 80s. Stores would have opened up left to right, often right next door to each other's families in those local areas would have had to choose between, like, to Pizza Time Theater or Showbiz Pizza. The video game crash would have happened in 1983, and a year later in 1984, Pizza Time Theater would have filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and like a month after this declaration of bankruptcy, they would have been bought out by either rival Showbiz Pizza. In the latter half of the 80s, they stayed separate, but there was a lot of overlap for the advertising, which confused a lot of 80s kids. So, starting around 1990 was concept unification. The concept unification installation tape is up on YouTube, but I will have to warn you that it will make you cry, especially if you are a die-hard Rockfire fan from the 80s. Yeah. This process would have been completed around 1992, 1993, and the new band would have been Munch's Make Believe Band. Actually, I need to explain how concept unification even happened. In the late 80s, the merged company, Showbiz Pizza Time Inc., was trying to figure out how to stop the confusion between the two separate marketing campaigns that mirrored each other a lot. So they wanted to merge concepts and put it all into one. And since Aaron Vector was and still is stingy of his own assets, Showbiz Pizza Time Inc. could not get the distribution rights of the Rockfire Explosions, so they had to make it with the Chuck E. Cheese animatronic. So they tore the Rockfire Explosion apart and put new Chuck E. Cheese cosmetics on them. And that's how the legend goes. Yeah. In the 90s, there would have been changes to Chuck. Because the 90s were about being hip and cool and all that, and the company wanted to translate that into Chuck's design, and that's how we got the iconic thumbs up Chuck. Yellow sweater, red cap, yeah. And then around the 2000s, that would have got updated to Avenger Chuck, who's iconic to 2000s kids like myself. Especially since that's the Chuck that most 2000 kids would have been familiar with before the switch over in 2012 to Rockstar Chuck that caused a lot of controversy. And yeah, starting around 2017, there would have been a movement from corporate CC where they were wanting to phase out animatronics in as many stores as possible. This would have been the 2.0 movement that everyone hates, including me. It would have replaced animatronic stages with a dance floor and a video wall in the 2020 iteration. Well, I mean 2022. I'm slipping on my words because I'm thinking quicker than I can speak once again. So, yeah, expect me to trip on my words a lot because whenever I'm talking about my fixations, I tend to think quicker than I can speak. Makes sense. Yeah. Majority of locations across the globe have gone 2.0'd by now, but there's still some animatronic stages that still exist. It's all dependent on your local area. And yeah, around like 2023, 2024, there was a move on corporate CEC's part where corporate actually listened to fans for once in their lives and done a handful of legacy stores, including one that has a pretty neat little corner that has Chuck E. Cheese memorabilia, both from back in the day and now, which is pretty neat, but it wasn't enough to really save their asses, and they're still struggling to appeal to the fans to this day. But as from what I've heard in videos that I've watched recently, there aren't any more 2.0s, so some stores might remain how they always have been, if not eventually going to be shut down by corporate because they don't meet corporate standards. So, yeah, that's the whole shtick with my fixation. Well, one of my fixations, my strangest fixation. I can talk about plenty more fixations of mine, past and present. There's been a lot of fixations that I've had over the years, and I'd be willing to talk about them if I have a good enough memory of them to discuss them without going on the internet for extensive research. Yeah. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making this video. But, yeah. That's all. Bye. Ed and Kim here. Many hours later. I remembered some things that I've forgotten in the main recording session. The Discovery Zone rivalry that Chuck E. Cheese had in the early 90s. That was ended by 2000 when every Discovery Zone location closed. That's something real quick. The thing was concept deification. I didn't explain who got changed into who. Billy Bob was removed entirely. Mitzi was replaced with Helen. Beach Bear was replaced with Jasper. Fats was replaced with Munch. Duke was replaced with Pasquale. Rolf was replaced with Chuck, with Earl being removed entirely as well. Additionally, I forgot to mention some extra characters from both the Rockfire and Munch's Make-Believe Band. Birthday Bird, a small old bird that was on Billy Bob's guitar, ultimately went unused by the time concept unification rolled around, because they, like Billy Bob, got the cut. Sun became building, obviously, and there was an owl, but that was discontinued in 82. Choo Choo, the little bear cub, became Munch Jr. Antioch, the birthday spider, would have been removed entirely and then replaced with the Wink. The frog got the cut. The moon is actually the LA classic rough Rockafire prop that stayed. And, though technically not a prop in the Rockafire, Looney Bird became a prop in Munch's make-believe band that's known as Pizza Cam. Then there's Uncle Clunk, but, you don't need to know more about Clunk besides that he was a failure. And he was also retrofitted into a Santa show during the holidays. Oh yeah, there was also a Statue of Liberty that creative engineering made for a 4th of July show. And that's all I can think of for extra information. So now, that's really all for the video. Wait. I'm also forgetting the other bankruptcy that happened in 2020 after all Chuck E. Cheese locations were forced to shut down. There was a time in 2020 where Chuck E. Cheese had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy a second time in its almost 50-year history, and a bunch of stores closed. But they were able to rebound later on, and they're doing okay now. As far as legacy stores and what stores never got 2.0'd because they discontinued 2.0 models, we'll get them in terms of keeping their fan base alive. So yeah, that's all. Bye. Oh yeah, one last thing. Showbiz had a random crossover with Yogi Bear retrofitting Billy Bob and Looney Bird into Yogi and Boo Boo. Now that's all. Bye. Oh, I forgot to mention the King, later King Cat from Pizza Time Theater. Basically a lion animatronic that would have been an Elvis impersonator that was later made into a lookalike of Michael Jackson. But besides that, I can't think of any other things that I've missed, so yeah. Now this is the end. Bye. God.